The International District and SODO areas of Seattle have been changed by the various communities that have lived in and moved into the area. The view here from the José Rizal Bridge is almost unrecognizable when compared to this photo taken from the same spot in 1882.
Hi, I'm Bob Swirsel, and I'm going to be your ride leader for this history ride around the International District and SODO. I'm going to show you some interesting spots while sharing some stories about many of the communities that have lived here.
For thousands of years before European settlers arrived, native Salish people have been living and still live in the region. The local Duwamish tribe had villages throughout the greater Seattle area, including one in the current Pioneer Square area called Daejeon, or a little place where one crosses over. Looking at the historical maps, you may notice that they are vastly different from modern day. We'll cover what caused that during the ride. The route consists of two loops, the first around the International District and the second around SODO. We'll start outside the International District Chinatown light rail station. Our first stop is the historic Chinatown Gate. Dedicated in 2008, it was designed by Paul Wu and Ming Zhang and is made of steel and 8,000 ceramic tiles that were made in southern China. In the 1860s to 1870s, the first Chinese immigrants arrived in the area and built railroads, worked in coal mines and lumber mills, and much more. Anti-Chinese sentiment led to the Chinese Exclusion Act in 1882, and in early February 1886, mobs of thousands of people attacked and forced Seattle's Chinese residents out of their homes, towards the docks, and onto ferries. The situation was so out of control that President Grover Cleveland had to send in federal troops. In the early 20th century, Goon Dip, a highly influential Chinese businessman in the Pacific Northwest, persuaded Seattle's Chinese businessmen to move from the tidal flats of Elliott Bay to the area east of King Street Station. This became the new Chinatown, which combined with Nihonmachi and later Little Saigon, now make it the area known as the International District. They are historically separated by Jackson Street and Interstate 5, and you can tell which part you are in by looking at the street signs, which contain text from each language. We'll make our way to the next stop in Nihonmachi. This is the Panama Hotel. Designed by Saburo Ozasa, it opened in August 1910 as a working man's hotel. It had a laundry, dentist, tailor, pool hall, bookstore, florist, sushi shop, and a Japanese-style public bathhouse called a sento. After the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act, Japanese workers filled jobs that had previously been filled by Chinese workers. By the start of the 20th century, nearly the entire agricultural workforce east of Lake Washington was of Japanese ancestry, and in 1941, Japanese Americans represented the largest ethnic minority in Seattle. After Pearl Harbor was attacked by Japan, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt issued Presidential Order 9066, authorizing the Secretary of War to declare parts of the country as military zones and remove any people living there. As a result, 7,000 Japanese American residents living in Seattle, almost 2% of the city's population, were sent to concentration camps. Many brought their belongings to the Panama Hotel, but after World War II, some of these belongings were never retrieved. Our next few stops are on Beacon Hill.
You wouldn't realize it at first, but the valley below the José Rizal Bridge didn't exist over a century ago.
A steep ridge used to connect Beacon Hill with First Hill that made it very difficult for people in the Rainier Valley to access downtown Seattle and the port. In 1910, the city started the Dearborn Regrade, which removed up to 112 vertical feet of soil from the ridge,
reducing the grade on Dearborn Street from 19% to its current 3%. The bridge was constructed in 1911 during the regrade. The José Rizal Bridge is the oldest steel arch bridge in the state. Continuing across the bridge, we arrive at José Rizal Park. Dr. José Protásio Rizal Mercado y Realanda was an author, polymath, licensed eye doctor, and Filipino nationalist. Growing up in the Philippines in the 19th century, he moved to Europe and wrote about the atrocities and corruption of the Spanish authorities and clergy back home. In 1892, he moved back to the Philippines and formed La Liga Filipina, a political reform group to promote Filipino self-governance. He was arrested by Spanish authorities, accused of rebellion, sedition, and forming illegal association with a secret nationalist group, and then executed on December 30th, 1896. He is revered as the national hero of the Philippines. When the U.S. annexed the Philippines in 1898, many Filipino people moved to America, finding work initially in the agricultural, service, and fishing industries. Since then, the Filipinx community has continued to have a strong and lasting presence in Seattle. On June 7, 1981, after many years of efforts by Vic Bacho and Trinidad Rojo to gain official recognition and promotion of Filipinx history and culture, the park and bridge were dedicated in José Rizal's honor. We're now at Daejeon Park, named for Seattle's Korean sister city since 1989. During and after the Korean War, a few thousand Koreans immigrated to Seattle. Through the following decades, many started and ran successful local businesses, and today, more than 60,000 Seattle residents have Korean ancestry. Daejeon is the fifth largest city in South Korea. It is a highly technological city and is sometimes referred to as Asia's Silicon Valley. The pagoda here in Seattle is a gift from Daejeon that was dedicated in October 1998. In Daejeon, there is a Seattle park that features an etching of our Space Needle on one side and the similar hand-bit tower on the other side. We'll continue back into the International District. The area known as Little Saigon used to be populated by African Americans and Jewish people. The first major change happened when the Jackson regrade occurred in 1909, removing 85 vertical feet of soil from the hill and making it far more accessible to development. During World War II, when Japanese Americans were removed from the city, many African Americans moved to the area looking for defense jobs. They transformed the area into the center of a thriving jazz culture in Seattle. Another major change to the area was the construction of Interstate 5 in the 1960s, which permanently separated the neighborhood from Chinatown. After the fall of Saigon and end to the Vietnam War in spring of 1975, around 2,000 Vietnamese immigrants moved into the area. Over the following decade, waves of immigrants and refugees from Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and other areas of Southeast Asia arrived. In 1984, Southeast Asian merchants created their own commercial center, and the area became known as Little Saigon. At the corner of Jackson Street and 12th Avenue is where a historic Seattle jazz club used to operate. The Black and Tan Club served as Seattle's longest-running jazz nightclub from the 1920s through the 1960s. Opened in February 1920, it was originally named the Alhambra Cabaret by owner Harry Legg. It became known as the Black and Tan Club because it was a place for people of all colors to mingle and enjoy themselves.
The most well-known owners were two entrepreneurs named E. Russell Noodles Smith and Burr Blackie Williams. Entertainers who performed at the Black and Tan Club include greats such as Duke Ellington, Quincy Jones, Ernestine Anderson, Ray Charles, Count Basie, and many more. We'll head back into Chinatown. The museum here is named for Wing Luke. Born in 1925 in Guangzhou, China, Wing Chang Luke emigrated with his parents to Seattle when he was 6 years old. A World War II vet and Bronze Star Medal recipient, Wing became the Assistant Attorney General of the State of Washington Civil Rights Division from 1957 to 1962. In 1962, he ran for Seattle City Council and became the first Asian American to hold elected office in the Pacific Northwest. As a council member, he helped pass the Seattle Open Housing Ordinance of 1963, which led to the creation of the Seattle Human Rights Commission and eventually a ban on racial discrimination in housing. In May 1965, he died in a plane crash in the Cascades. In 1966, the Wing Luke Museum was established in his honor. Its initial focus was on folk art, but it later expanded to show more aspects of the community. Today, the Wing Luke Museum of the Asian Pacific American Experience represents over 26 ethnic groups, showcasing their art, history, culture, and more. This is the United States Immigrant Station and Assay Office. Designed in 1929, it opened in 1932. On the fourth floor, there was an assay office for assessing gold and other precious minerals. From 1932 to 1955, it assessed around 1,000 tons of gold with a value of around $650,000. The rest of the building was used to process and detain immigrants. The first floor held offices, and the second and third floors contained dorms and jails and held up to 300 people there. Most of its operations were dedicated to enforcement of the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, a law that wasn't repealed until 1943. After World War II, the focus changed to immigrants from Latin America. The office closed in 2004 when a new facility in Tacoma opened, and the building was converted into artist studios and reopened in 2010 as Inscape. Today, the building hosts 125 tenants and is filled with art and history installations of the building's past. Next, we'll head into the industrial area known as SODO. Originally, this was a train corridor used by the Milwaukee Road and Union Pacific Railroads to get to Union Station. In 1991, it was converted into the SODO Busway and included a bus tunnel through downtown Seattle that is now used exclusively by light rail trains. SODO Track is an art installation and the result of a partnership between 4Culture and King County Metro Transit. During the summers of 2016, 2017, and 2018, 64 artists produced 51 murals along the SODO Busway between Spokane Street and Royal Brown Way. At almost 2 miles in length, this is the longest corridor of street art in the world. A majority of the murals can only be seen from the SODO Trail and public transit. Personally, my favorite type of art is murals, and I love coming to SODO to see them. Cannabis City is the first marijuana store in Seattle history. The state of Washington officially legalized the recreational use of marijuana
when voters passed Initiative 502 in the November 2012 election. Cannabis City opened its doors for business on July 8, 2014, and its first customer was Deb Green, a marathon-running grandmother who waited 21 hours in line. She later donated items from the store's historic first sale, including the weed itself, to the Museum of History and Industry. The tan-colored building on the left here was originally built in 1912 by Union Pacific Railroad to lure Chicago-based Sears, Roebuck & Company to do business here, and it worked. It became the primary location for fulfilling Sears catalog orders for the western United States. In 1925, they opened a retail store here that operated until 2014. The red brick building with the notable tower was built a few years later in 1915. The tower itself was built as a water tower for the building's sprinkler system. In 1997, it became Starbucks Center when Starbucks moved their headquarters there. We're here on Harbor Island, which has been the largest man-made island in the world multiple times. This area used to be part of the tidal flats and deltas of the Duwamish River that could be flooded depending on the tide. To increase the area's potential for industrial use, a Seattle-based company was hired. The Puget Sound Bridge and Dredging Company was a major shipbuilding and construction company established in 1898 that also built the first floating bridge across Lake Washington, the original Husky Stadium at University of Washington, and the King County Courthouse. They dredged the Duwamish River to make it straighter and deeper to handle larger shipping vessels. They then used the silt and combined it with soil from the Jackson and Dearborn regrades, about 24 million cubic yards of soil, to build Harbor Island. Soil from other regrades was dumped into Elliott Bay and used to fill the tidal flats to create the industrial area now known as SODO. In 1909, when Harbor Island was first completed, it was around 350 acres big and the largest artificial island in the world. It was surpassed in 1938 by Treasure Island in San Francisco Bay, but it regained its title in 1967 when it was expanded. It is no longer the largest man-made island in the world, but at almost 407 acres, it remains the largest in the United States. As we head towards downtown, enjoy the views of the Seattle skyline. Here at the stadium currently known as CenturyLink Field, we'll learn about its predecessor. A measure to build a stadium passed in 1968 as part of Seattle's Forward Thrust, and the site selected was off King Street in the International District. The Kingdome was built from 1972 to 1976. Its first sporting event was a preseason exhibition match for the North American Soccer League between the Seattle Sounders and the New York Cosmos on April 9, 1976. Playing for the Cosmos was Brazilian soccer legend Pelé, and the crowd of over 58,000 set a new record for a soccer match in the United States. The Kingdome hosted other Seattle sports teams, including the Seahawks football team, Mariners baseball team, and even the Supersonics basketball team for a couple of years. The Kingdome is most notable for its method of demolition. On March 26, 2000, the Kingdome was imploded, a feat that set a Guinness World Record for largest building by volume demolition by implosion. Two stadiums took its place, the first being Safeco Field, now T-Mobile Park, in 1999, and the second being Seahawks Stadium, later Quest Field, and now CenturyLink Field, in 2002. Just past the edge of the stadium parking lot is our next stop. King Street Station was opened in 1906 by James J. Hill, who had purchased Northern Pacific Railroad in 1901. It was designed by Charles Reed and Alan Stern, the designers of New York's Grand Central Terminal. The 242-foot tower was modeled after the Campanile di San Marco in Venice, Italy. It was the tallest building in Seattle for a few years until the Smith Tower was built. In 2008, the city of Seattle bought the station from Burlington Northern Santa Fe for a whopping $10, because that was the smallest amount for which they could write a check. The station underwent massive renovations that were completed in 2013. King Street Station now serves Amtrak's Cascades, Empire Builder, and Coast Starlight lines, and Sound Transit's Sounder commuter line. Alright, let's see if you've been paying attention. It's time for a pop quiz. Pause the video if you need more time for your answers. Question 1. Who was the first Asian American to hold elected office in the Pacific Northwest? The correct answer is Wing Luke. Question 2. What is the Seattle corridor of street art featuring murals from over 60 artists called? The correct answer is SODO Track. Question 3. Who is the national hero of the Philippines? The correct answer is Dr. José Rizal. If you answered all 3 questions correctly, you're on your way to becoming a Seattle history buff. If you missed any answers, you'd better rewatch the video. We finish our ride back at the International District Chinatown light rail station. Thank you for joining me on this virtual history ride. While I covered a little bit of it, there is so much more history to learn and stories to hear about the communities that have lived in the International District and SODO. So please, visit the museums, read more on your own, and talk to people. I'll see you on the next ride.